Previously on this week's episode of Do I Like This, the podcast.
Just hearing it's glorious. Not seeing it, just hearing it's amazing.
And then you get a nice pan over the city, and that's the end. That's so weird. I wonder if there's anything else little that got cut out.
I know. I'm now wondering the same
Maybe.
thing.
That's
you're welcome to watch the entire film again from the link I sent you. No one's going to do it.
I think I'm good.
Oh, hello, everybody. I'm Ian.
And I'm Sam.
And this is Do I Like This, the podcast.
Woo.
And this week, fresh from his gym watch of this movie, Brett's joining us this week.
Yay.
Not too fresh. I've showered since, so.
Well, get out. Unacceptable.
All right, fair enough.
This week, I brought Sam and Brett the 1998 treasure that is Maniac Cop.
Yeah, you did.
This is a movie.
It happened.
We watched it.
I've seen people post about it before online, but I didn't actually know it was a thing. And I had no clue Bruce Campbell was in it until you told me. So
Baby Bruce Campbell.
Little tiny baby Bruce Campbell.
Very young.
Yeah.
Pretty sure his head was superimposed on someone else's body.
Yeah. Anyone who's seen it knows why I'm talking the way I'm talking right now.
Go on. Explain it to all the audience who hasn't seen it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just jump right in.
Let's jump right in. Yeah. Wait,
All right.
Hold on. Does anyone have anything before we jump right in?
Any business?
Maniac Cop 1988. So that's my year of birth as well. 33-year-old movie. Love it.
That's why I picked it. Totally.
I mean, before you go into detail telling everybody what happened, if you had to kind of pick another movie that you thought the first 20 minutes of this film felt very similar to, could you come up with anything?
I would argue almost any 80s movies, the first 20 minutes of this film. You could answer Working Girl or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and you're not wrong.
Yeah. Oh,
Okay.
Definitely Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I got that.
It definitely has late 80s vibes that are this is all the 80s brought back. But what movie were you thinking in particular, Brett?
I thought that the first few scenes with the Maniac Cop were very Friday the 13th in style and tone. The whole movie itself is not, but those initial jolts of violence that we got to enjoy, very much a Jason-y killer.
Especially the first kill. That was very Jason-like.
I was very excited at how this movie fucking got to it. And then it kept getting to it for the first 20 minutes. It was great.
But in a real weird way.
And by weird, you mean some racism and...
Well, let's talk about that opening scene.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so hold on. Can I just first say that we should say we watched it on Amazon.
Yes, but you need a Shudder subscription.
Oh, that's right. Okay. So there's that. So I just feel like I should mention that opening montage for the credits was 3 of the slowest minutes of my life. It's just the guy he's just buttoning up a jacket for 3 minutes and fastening a belt.
Putting on a uniform, yeah.
But it was set to scary music, and I'm just sitting there okay, I got it. He's a cop.
I mean, this movie struggled to get to 85 minutes, so they were taking their time opening it up.
Yeah.
I also believe that scene actually spoils the movie.
I think the title spoils the movie.
As he's putting on his uniform, he has a name tag.
Oh, I didn't catch that.
Yeah, I saw that. That was an interesting choice.
That's funny.
It's the guy's name.
Oh, you mean Matt?
Yeah, Joe.
Whatever.
And that, really?
The serial murderer, Matt?
I'm sorry, this took place in New York, so it was Vinny.
Oh, uh-huh.
I wish it was Vinny. It was Matt.
Matt.
All right.
When they reveal that, which we'll get to, and it's out of time, I died. I was like, oh, it's Matt. Okay, awesome.
Slow montage aside, though, this actual opening scene
was something else.
Yes, the actual opening scene. Go for it, Brett.
Woman walks out of a bar late at night. Dark, kind of a dive bar, right? Heading down what actually look like city streets. One thing I love about these older movies is if you watch a movie nowadays that takes place in a city, right? It always takes place in or at least the set direction always looks like it's downtown Manhattan, right? like you're walking through Billboard Alley or whatever that place is called, Times Square, right? You got the huge high rises, the huge fancy buildings, yada yada. And anybody who's actually lived in a city knows that that's 2% of city life, right? So she's walking down Bodega Alley in some part of New York that I'm not familiar with. Could be Bayonne for all I know, right? So this lady is hoofing it down late night city streets and gets accosted by what I described in my mind as some West Side Story cast members.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
They were definitely sharks.
Completely unarmed, just jump out of the nowhere and are trying to mug her. And she kind of kicks their asses.
Dude, she kicks the shit out of them.
Oh, yeah.
If I were them, I would have just given up.
Right?
But they did not.
She back slams one into a car, flips off him, hits him in the face with her bag, and pieces out. It was great.
That was funny. I like that.
I assumed she was going to be the hero of the film after that.
Right.
So I was like, damn.
Won.
Ooh, bad choice.
Unfortunately for everyone involved, she runs off. They give pursuit, and eventually she ends up at a playground.
Mm-hmm.
And then she stopped running to turn around and watch him catch up with her.
Yeah, but that's what you do.
Yeah. I mean, you got to make sure you escaped, right?
Right.
Just got to verify for 10 minutes.
In the darkness of the playground, she sees a suited up police officer. And she runs over, and the dudes also see it. But instead of just being like, oh, cops, we better leave, they take up positions behind a seesaw or something to watch what's going on.
Right.
As you do.
It's okay. And unfortunately for the lady, it was Murder Cop, Maniac Cop.
Mm-hmm.
And he lifts her up by her neck and shakes her a bit and then crack, breaks her neck. And the dudes watching are kind of just bummer, oh, that stinks. Their reaction is just so strangely out of place.
Well, especially because they were just assaulting her and trying to rob her, and they're like, "Oh man, that's terrible." And it's we wanted to do that. What? Yeah, this is very strange. So that's that scene. So that kind of sets us up. We know what we're in for. Well, we think we know what we're in for. Because it kind of turns on its heel. Because I thought that it was going to be more like a Jason movie where it was just a bunch of people and this guy just kind of coming at them. But instead we get a love story and a triangle and
we get a weird love triangle.
Yeah. Which comes up later. Yeah.
Is the greatest medical examiner mullet I have ever seen.
Oh, well, hold on. We have to say, so the next day, somehow the cops find the two muggers.
Because they were still in the park next to her body.
I guess. And they're like, it wasn't us, it was a cop. And so that sets that up and that becomes a thing later. So, yeah, the medical examiner, his hair, I don't even know what that was. It was a bowl cut. Because it wasn't really a mullet. It was a bowl cut and then a rat tail.
Right. It wasn't even business in the front.
No.
It was party in the back, but
it was a whole lot of party.
It was mom made me do this in the front and party in the back.
That was the only thing I watched the entire scene. I just couldn't stop looking at it.
Fortunately, though, it didn't distract me from when our main character, the detective, what was his name? Frank?
McRae. I don't know his last name.
Inspector Alec Trebek.
Yeah, pretty much. He makes an Alec Trebek kind of reference so they reveal the girl, and he's like, "Oh, I know her.
Yeah.
She's at this bar. She always had the latest jokes."
Yeah, so they were like old pals, I guess. Well, so the medical examiner is like saying, she was strangled, her neck is broken. It only happens when you're hung, but look at the size of those hematomas. Because they're hand marks, I guess. I don't know. So then McRae just monologues over her dead body, like, alas, poor waitress. I knew him, Horatio.
Pretty much.
Right.
Yeah.
His partner cop is like pretending to be so grossed out by this not that graphic dead body.
And she's just a lady with some hematomas.
I'm like, this is a guy in the 80s, a cop in New York City. I feel like you'd see some gross, violent shit.
Oh, yeah.
But
For
he
reals.
couldn't handle it.
Yeah, so then we go straight into another murder.
Oh, yeah, Murder Cop doesn't wait around.
Nighttime, daytime, nighttime again.
This definitely had a Friday the 13th kind of vibe to this kill.
Yeah, Jason Takes Manhattan for real.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, you know the rules. Kids cannot make out or be remotely sexual when there are serial killers afoot.
Especially in a fancy car.
It was a fancy car.
In the middle of the night.
They chose to make out at a stoplight because they pull up and it's red. And they're like sitting there for like 2 seconds. And then apparently it's like, well, this is too boring for me. Time to get some smooches on. And like cops rapping at their door. And I liked, because the Maniac Cop doesn't speak, which I very much enjoyed. But we have the shot basically from the passenger window through the front of the car of the cop like knocking on the window. And he's doing like the cartoon Billy Club maneuver.
Oh, yeah.
He's like holding it in one hand and lifting it. And then the guy rolls down the window and just the gloved hand turns up the finger and does the come hither with me to bring him out front to do presumably a sobriety test.
Yeah, because they had alcohol in the car.
My thought on this was like, look around. This cop clearly doesn't have a car. Just drive away. Just drive away.
He just walked over.
Yeah.
That's how you go to jail.
That's true. So the Maniac Cop has white cloth gloves, which I guess was a thing back in the day.
Mickey Mouse gloves.
Yeah, they were Mickey Mouse gloves. Yes. And so it's just kind of funny. Like, those serve zero purpose. They're not going to protect you from fluids. They're not going to protect you from needles. They're not going to protect you from anything.
They're not even part of his backstory. Like,
well, they cover up his scars.
True.
We learn later on that he has scarred hands, but I mean, what they really do is they just set a great contrast in all these dark shots, so you can see like exactly his hand motions, which I really liked the way that looked in that shot specifically.
Oh yeah, no, I think it was good. It was almost like that pantomime, like, you have like the hand.
Marcel Marceau, the murder cop.
That would be a fun movie.
I'd watch that movie.
The girls in the car watching the guy getting the field sobriety test or whatever, and the fucking Maniac Cop, he has a shiv / like machete, basically.
I feel like it's more than a shiv. Yeah.
Inside of his club, and he whips it out and just starts slicing the guy.
And then chucks him into the windshield of the car.
Yep.
I enjoyed that she turned the wipers on and it just made things worse.
Well, I was hoping she was smart enough to drive away, but...
She was like, this guy's dead. I'm out of here, boyfriend. Yeah. Respect.
And I actually was happy that she did drive away, because I was like, come on, dude.
Yeah.
You have more than enough time. You have the car keys. Just drive away.
They drive away. This movie moves so fast in the first 20 minutes, I got whiplash. Because like now we're in a scene where Detective Trebek is with the commissioner, and the commissioner's like, you're saying it's a cop. And I'm like, whoa, when did he say it was a cop? Like, so, what is happening?
So listen, did you recognize the commissioner?
No.
He's Shaft.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember his
Shut your mouth.
I don't recognize Shaft in roles that are official.
Ian never saw Shaft.
Decorated.
I can't.
Seen Shaft clips. I never saw the whole thing.
You don't see
0% chance I've seen all of Shaft. I always assumed it was Samuel L. Jackson.
He saw the 2019 Shaft,
right? The
not
terrible
the
one.
71 one.
So he was Shaft, among other things. So this cast is actually kind of stacked. It's like a lot of like pretty famous character actors. So which was fun to watch. But yeah, so the commissioner Shaft. At first I thought he was the mayor, but then it turns out he's the commissioner. He and McCrae are like kind of going back and forth, where he's like, "It's a cop, and you need to do something about it." And the commissioner's like, "No, it's all right, man. We don't have to tell anybody." And this point, so this movie was 88.
Mm-hmm.
And McCrae has this, especially as like someone who is like a mental health professional, and also like I did my thesis on first responder trauma. McCrae starts talking about like police officers have really high stress. They have all these things that they experience, and they have a high risk, blah, blah, blah. So it might be a cop. You never know. We gotta talk to some people. We gotta start screening people. And I'm like, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Fuck yeah. Like no one talks about this now. I can't believe they were talking about it in 1988. And so that actually like kind of like goes throughout the movie, which I thought was really ahead of its time and interesting. But then he also says like, the commissioner makes a comment to McCrae like, "Oh yeah, didn't you attempt suicide at some point? Like when your partner died? You know, you've been kind of a fucking mess ever since then, basically." And McCrae's like, "No, it was an accident. Don't worry about it."
The commissioner clearly does not give a shit about solving the crime. He's just like, don't let the people know that it's a guy dressed as a cop.
Yeah.
And he says a guy dressed as a cop, and McCrae's like, it is a cop.
Yeah.
So
I really liked McCrae's willingness to like, because earlier in that first scene with the morgue, they were like, just pin it on the two guys that we got, you know? And he's like, no, they couldn't have, they're too small. And his partner was like, are you sure you don't want to just kind of solve this with them?
Yeah.
I like McCrae. He's got some honesty to him. So we're about to get to my favorite kill in this movie.
Oh, Duke Silver.
Duke Silver. This movie just rapid fire, because we're not even 16 minutes in, because I know that because at 16 minutes we get a name drop of the movie title for the first time, and I wrote that down.
Yeah.
So we're on to our third aggressive murder in the first 15 minutes of this movie.
Yeah, so we have a guy leaving a jazz club, I think, a jazz club, which is why I named him Duke Silver. And all of a sudden, at his big fancy Buick or whatever, he gets handcuffed by the Maniac Cop, and then there's a chase.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
Like, he runs across the street and looks back, and the Maniac Cop is standing exactly where he was when the guy ran away. And, like, he runs up to, like, the door of a building and starts mashing the buzzers with his face.
Because his hands are behind his back.
Because his hands are handcuffed, right? And so, like, then he looks back, Maniac Cop's gone. Okay.
Very Michael Myers vibes with Maniac Cop for me, and just kind of the way he would stand there, and then you'd look away and look back, and he was gone.
Yeah, he did disappear a few times, which is funny for what it turns out to be.
Yeah. So we then get Maniac Cop knocks Duke Silver into wet cement.
Dude, so when he
love it.
When he fell, I didn't realize the cement was wet. I thought his face just obliterated the cement, and I was like, that is horrifying. But then I realized that it was wet cement, and then he gets his face kind of mashed into the concrete and has to get jackhammered out the next day.
I love that they cut it to the next day, and it's like Han Solo, but except for face down in concrete that's hardened, and they're like getting him out.
Right.
It was great.
I'm so glad I didn't see this movie when I was a kid, because like drowning in cement was like my biggest phobia or something when I was younger.
How did that come about?
I remember when I was taking karate classes as a kid one day, right? Because you take karate classes when you're a kid, you know, as one does. There was like a news story on the radio of like a missing kid. And my teacher was like, yeah, that's why you learn self-defense, so you don't end up in a block of cement. And what my child brain took away from that wasn't that a person was murdered and their body was hid in cement. What I understood was like, oh no, these sick bastards kidnapped a child and like put him in a box and just like poured cement on him while he was alive, so he died horribly. And I was like, you know what?
Yeah.
I don't like that idea. And that's why I didn't like Batman Forever, because Mr. Freeze was pretty much the same thing.
Wow.
Coming to you in the next Saw movie.
Yeah, that's pretty horrifying.
I'm sure it's been in a Friday the 13th movie,
course.
something like that, you know. So they're peeling him out of the cement, right? We go to a building that I believe is City Hall. It could be a train station, for all I know. It had the same aesthetic, right? It looked like Penn Station, but smaller, so who knows? Some suits are just walking down the hall being like, they can't let them know it was a cop. The mayor's going to have issues with re-election, blah, 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 blah. Like, it's a super tiny short scene, but establishes the fact that the mayor is involved with this somehow.
And he's very stereotypically Italian with the thick accent. And he's talking about tourism is going to go down. And I'm like, this isn't Jaws, sir. This is New York City.
It's going to attract people.
There will always be tourists, no
Have
matter
you been
what.
to Billboard Alley? It's gonna bring in people.
So we have McCrae. He meets this blonde lady in a bar, and apparently they have a past, and she's a journalist. And he gives her a rundown of everything that's going on with the Maniac Cop, because the commissioner told him to not tell anybody. So, of course, he gives this lady the whole file. Like, here you go. It's a cop.
When this scene started, were you as worried as I was that they were going to, like, make out?
100%.
Yeah, I thought they were going to, like, wind up
I didn't think I was going to see you again is one of her lines.
Yeah.
They have, like, this cute, flirty banter going on, and he buys beers for them, and she's at least 30 years younger than him. And I was just like, can we not do like this gross old man, young woman thing right now?
Yeah, there's enough love story in this.
We're going to give you a different weird love scenario.
We were pleasantly surprised that they didn't. It actually was just a professional relationship. And
then she never comes back.
And that's her part in the movie, yeah.
How is McCrae not fired instantly when this story leaks that night on the news with his name?
Right. He's like, use my name. We're good. Because she does you hear like a voiceover of the anchor talking about the Maniac Cop on the loose. There's a lady like listening on the radio. She's trying to start her car and a cop comes up to like help her and she fucking shoots him in the head.
Oh yeah.
And it's like so graphic and out of nowhere. And I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
What is this movie? It's so crazy.
It's also like the cute young cop too.
Right.
Like they clearly were like, we want like a boy band cop for this one scene so everybody feels bad.
Well, and then she shoots him and then you see him and they pan back to her and she's like, oops. Like this, like what I took from it is if you're a nervous middle-aged woman, you can get away with murder.
Yeah. So that causes, some trouble. And here's where we get to our weird, brief love triangle.
This whole scene was uncomfortable.
It was, but I think that was the point. And I thought it was actually like probably the best scene in the movie in terms of like being well acted and well
ignoring
written.
Your wife's cries for help.
Yeah. So this lady, she's in her nightgown and robe and some high heels, which I thought was an interesting choice. She's making a scrapbook with the Maniac Cop clippings, and she goes into her husband. She goes into her husband, and he's getting ready for work. He's dressed as a cop.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't face the camera right away, so I think we're meant to think that, like, oh, this is the Maniac Cop.
Yes, 100% red herrings.
And so one of the things in the Maniac Cop, we haven't seen his face. We just see his profile, and he has a very distinct jawline, like a literal rectangular forehead.
I think it's cherub condition. I don't remember exactly what it was. He's a very well-renowned actor.
Well, yeah, the actor himself has like a genetic disorder where that's like the actual shape of his face. But so when Bruce Campbell turns around, he is the chin. So he has a very similar jawline. So this is our red herring, obviously.
Can you call it a red herring when it's so obviously not him?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just for anybody who doesn't know Bruce Campbell off the top of their head, he's like a far more handsome Ian. And in this show, I don't think I'd seen him this young. I don't remember what year Evil Dead was, but like this is sweet little baby Bruce, and it's
baby,
very endearing.
Which is funny because he's so beefy now.
You know, time does that to you.
So Bruce Campbell, his name is Jack, I think, because I didn't refer to him as Jack at all. I just called him Bruce Campbell, and his wife. They have like a kind of like a back and forth where she's like, I didn't think you were working tonight. Why don't you just stay home? I hate being alone. I miss you. Sometimes I hear things. And I'm like, oh, honey.
Well, and his response is like, you should have said this to the marriage counselor I've been paying for and willing to go to.
Right. So
it was a very weird exchange because Bruce was very clearly being set up as the sympathetic character in this scene, where his wife is coming off as like unreasonable and demanding, saying, don't do your job, stay with me. I'm the one who gave up marriage counseling. But then that's immediately ruined in the subsequent scene where, spoiler alert, he's cheating on her.
Right.
She follows him and finds them in bed together.
Yeah. So first she gets a phone call from a lady, a woman's voice, who's like, you know, oh, Jack's the murderer. How long are you going to keep letting him murder people? And so now we know why the wife is like losing her shit a lot. She gets a gun out of the drawer and then she follows Jack super inconspicuously, by the way, like 20 feet behind him in a giant long bathrobe trench coat.
For a moment before we finish this, part of me wanted that phone call to just have been imaginary and just like her losing her mind.
That would have been a different movie.
Not. Yeah.
Yeah. So he goes to a motel that seems to be around the corner from their house. So obviously he's up to shady business. She somehow like goes into the hotel manager and gets a key to that room. I don't know if maybe in the 80s they were all the same key or something. Who knows? But she gets a key to that room.
I figured that manager didn't give a fuck.
Yeah, that seems silly. So she goes in and the first thing she sees is a chair with 2 police officer uniforms draped over it. Setting up that Jack's secret lady friend is also a cop. And then she finds them in bed together. And the first thing he says is, why did you follow me?
Well, I was going to say, and then my favorite part about this whole thing is how his response is like, well, this isn't how I wanted you to find out. Like, not like he's doing something wrong and been caught.
Yeah. So, and like Brett said, I think they're trying to set him up to be like more sympathetic and that the wife is crazy.
And to Brett's point that I agree with, it's kind of hard to make someone sympathetic when the next thing you do is have him having an affair.
Right.
I mean, maybe in the 80s it was just more culturally acceptable to cheat on your crazy wife, but nowadays it just comes off as a little gauche.
A little shitty, yeah.
Just a little.
A faux pas.
She leaves after kind of like...
Well, she threatens to kill them. Yeah.
Yeah, because she had the gun. She leaves and instantly grabbed by Maniac Cop and dead. I didn't expect that turn of this movie.
She got taken straight into a van. And like, ooh, maybe she's going to be a hostage. Maybe there's some plot going to happen. Maybe whatever.
That's what I thought too.
Exactly what I thought too.
40 seconds later, cut to the housekeeper cleaning that hotel room the next morning. We find the wife's body in there with her throat slit.
Yes.
Deadies.
At which point I knew exactly what this movie was about to try and do.
So yeah, that was a little bit of a surprise.
I was actually disappointed by it because it's a slasher film and that was functionally an off-screen death of a major character.
Yeah, it was definitely silly.
We get a couple very towards the end of the movie where it kind of goes sort of off screen for some major deaths. And I think it's interesting that for a film that shows that they can do gore and killing, that sometimes they do that.
Well, maybe they had to like cut a few bodies to keep their rating, whatever it was.
That's possible.
Well, I mean, up to this point, all of them had been fantastic. The neck break, the knifing was like, I loved how casually he knifed that dude. It was like his arm motion. Yeah. The arm motion was like he was slapping him, like a bam bam, right? Forward backhand, but it was with a knife, and it was just loved it. Cement face, excellent. But like, wife on a bed, come on.
Yeah. So then we get Bruce Campbell. He's at roll call the next day, and he gets pulled out by his boss, and basically is like, how's your relationship? And Bruce Campbell's like, what the fuck are you talking about? He's like,
your wife's dead.
Your wife's dead. She got murdered. And he's like super graphic. Her throat was slit from ear to ear. You want to see the pictures? And I'm like,
so this guy was definitely the villain, right? Like that's what this scene said to you. Because he comes in and he's doing like a freaking Batman voice when he's talking. Oh God.
He sounded like he ate cigarettes for a living. Like that's all he did.
The throat was slit from ear to ear. And we're like, first of all, tactless. You are telling your employee that his wife is dead. Show some sympathy or compassion, unless you're a serial killer, of course.
Right.
And like, he just was an awful person and clearly was being set up to seem awful. Is there a payoff for this?
No, really.
That's one of the off-scene things toward the very end that really annoys me.
It's not totally off-screen, but it's like half.
Pretty obscured.
Yeah. But so they set this guy up to be something that he wound up really not serving any purpose other than to like kind of just be a butthead from time to time.
I mean, he actually kind of turns out to be a passable cop when we find out later on. Well, we'll talk about that scene when we get there. Right now, he's telling Bruce Campbell that I'm reading you your rights and taking you to a cell.
Well, because he admits that he was at the motel that she was at. And then the guy's like, perfect. That's exactly what I wanted to hear.
We were looking for someone to pin this on, and you just helped me out.
You had marital troubles. You were at the scene of the crime. You saw the victim and left.
And you have a police uniform.
And you said all of those things to me, the cop.
In less than 30 seconds.
Bruce is not good at covering his ass in this movie.
No. Oh God, he's so bad at it. He's like a damsel in distress.
Yeah, he's got an alibi, and as we find out in the next scene, he's like, I really don't want to bring her into this. And I'm like, dude, they're gonna pin 4 murders on you. Bring her the fuck into this.
Right. So he's being interrogated. They're like, we found your wife's scrapbook, and her diary literally says, I believe my husband is I now believe he's the maniac cop. And they're like, there you go, nail in the coffin. And then his lawyer comes in and it's like, it's all right, buddy. We know you're guilty. It's all right, buddy. You can just tell him and it'll be better for you. And he's like, I have a lady friend, but I'm not going to say her name. I'm just going to leave her out of it. And it's like, dude.
His line is like, if they can't solve this by Friday, I'll drop her name.
Yeah. Talk about being like white in jail.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Dude is clearly skewed on his perception of how the justice system works, where he's just like, I'll let the cops stew a little bit before I bother sprinkling these tidbits of how I'm not a serial killer from, like, what are you doing? Just get out of the content.
The rate with which he was incriminating himself when they mentioned that her journal, I was expecting him to be like, oh, I'm going to kill that bitch.
Yeah. Yeah, like, oh, I'm so glad she's dead. What a fucking idiot, you know?
Yeah, like he's just so awful at taking care of himself.
I needed a wife like a hole in the head. Like, God damn.
Seriously. So now we're going to cut, I believe. So I don't take the most accurate notes. So tell me if I'm missing anything.
So this is where we get McCrae and the gravelly voiced captain. Okay. They're in a bar having a couple of drinky poos. And they're watching the news, and this is where we get the report. And it's just of like scenes of all these people being interviewed. Like, I don't trust the cops. If a cop comes up, I'm running away. They're gonna murder me. Blah blah blah. And this is where we get the black man talking about how his friends have been murdered by cops when they haven't had weapons. And I like wrote in my notes, wow, it's really unfortunate how relevant all of this still is, and even more so, unfortunately. So, We already
Although
had
we
that
did get a
conversation.
quote from a guy at the end of that clip going, back in my day, the cops would just hit you with their pilly and you follow the law. And I was just like, this fucking movie's on point.
Typical white guy, like old white man.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds about right. So McCrae is saying to the captain, like, listen, Jack is not involved. I know he's not. It's a cop that's not Jack. And I'm like, dude, McCrae, are you a psychic? Like, he just magically knows things. I kind of love him.
The captain is the super reasonable one in this scene, saying we have a suspect and a mountain of circumstantial evidence and some physical evidence.
Mm-hmm.
Why would we assume that it's not the guy we have?
Yeah. No, this absolutely. He's a butthead, but he's not wrong in this scene at all. And he's being like like you said, reasonable. He's being like rational about it. He's like, yeah, nope, all of that is unfounded, but let's have another.
This whole scene, I just saw Sean Spencer's dad talking to Alex Trebek.
Yes.
So
yeah, that's a very fair point.
I couldn't take any of it seriously.
That's very accurate.
I mean, he's pretty much talking to Sean Spencer dressed as Alex Trebek, being like, Sean,
well, he is a psychic.
Evidence.
He's a psychic.
Your gut feelings aren't enough for us, Alex.
Yeah, all he needs is the little hand movement.
I know you're very perceptive, but this is bad police work, Sean.
So then our next scene is McCrae going to see Jack in jail. And he says, listen, your girlfriend must know or be connected to the Maniac Cop somehow, because how else would he be getting his information? How would he know that you were at that motel with her? Like, she's the one that is the connection. So you need to tell me who she is. And then we find out what his girlfriend does for the police force in the 80s.
What happened to waiting until Friday?
So I loved that he's like, I'm not saying who it is. It'll ruin her reputation. And before the guy even... It's a run-on sentence. Like, the guy does not get an interjection. He's like, I'm not telling you who it is. I don't want to ruin her reputation. But she's a tough girl. You know, it's Mallory.
Yeah. She works with us.
What? She shoots better than me down at the range. She's a cop. It's Mallory. It's like, where did protecting her go?
That was pretty funny. Wait, what was her? Is that her name? Because I just wrote girlfriend.
I think it's Mallory. Yes.
I want to say Mallory.
I thought it was like Teresa or something.
I called her the worst undercover cop of all time.
Oh, she's real bad.
Okay, so this is my favorite fucking thing in the movie.
I loved her. I thought she was great.
No, I loved her.
Yeah,
this scene is my favorite thing. So
she was real bad at being a vice cop.
Alex goes back to go find her. They cut to her. She's dressed up as a sex worker waiting outside in the corner. And a guy pulls up, like mid 40s or 50s, being like, "Hey, what are you doing tonight?" She's like, more or less, "I don't know. What are you doing?" He's like, "You want to come for a ride with me?" And she's like, "Be more specific." And he goes, "You're not a cop, are you?" And she's like, "You asked the one question I can't lie to." Yeah, get out of here, buddy. And it's like, are they really going with, you have to say yes if you're a cop if someone asks you if you're a cop?
It was like a cheeky prostitution sting. Like, she was like, "Run along, you little scamp." And he's like,
"Say hi to the kids for me."
It's like, "You got me." Haha.
So fucking ridiculous. I loved it.
And listen, her hair was crimped to the Lord, like all the way up. It was so puffy that the makeup was so bad, even for the 80s. She was popping gum.
It screamed, "I'm an undercover cop."
It did. It was horrible. She looked awful.
I mean, I never met a late 80s whore. But even I felt like she looked more like someone you would see in the background of like a workout tape with Jane Fonda or something.
Yes.
That's
than
exactly
a prostitute.
what she looked like. Yeah. So obviously she's real bad at her job because she has not been able to sting anybody.
Yeah.
So she goes to have a little smoky in the alley.
In the alley. Sees a gigantic silent cop standing at the end of the alley. Doesn't freak out.
At least 13 feet tall.
Right. And he starts walking menacingly toward her. And she's like, "Is that you, Jack or whoever.
No, she says a rant like Malone.
She says somebody's name. Isn't that Jack's last name?
No, I think his name was Campbell.
That's
or
Bruce
Cornell or something.
Also, don't you know the height of the guy you've been sleeping with?
I don't know how to tell you.
No, because they're in a bed and you're both the same height in bed.
That's true. You shrink to each other's sizes.
That's just like science, Ian.
As soon as you lay down in bed, you both become the same size.
Everybody's the same height lying down. Well,
I need that to be a line in a movie.
I'll write it. Can I just say, as a side tangent, the guy who plays Captain Gravelly Voice is named William Smith. And when I saw Will Smith on the title crawl, I got way too excited and was a little disappointed.
I wrote the same note after Bruce Campbell.
7?
I was like, Bruce Campbell and Will Smith? How did I not see this?
This is going to be the next Bad Boys.
That would be so magical, actually.
Get them together for Lethal Weapon 9.
Maniac Cop.
Did you know that they're supposed to be remaking Maniac Cop? It's like
great.
Well,
languishing in pre-production, but still. So Lady Cop is having a smoke, and Maniac Cop starts coming at her. And right at this time, McCrae has rolled up and is looking for her.
Mm-hmm.
The guy pulls out his sword, and she pulls out her gun and just shoots him a bunch of times. And he just like doesn't give any fucks. He's kind of like Bloody Bill.
Literally no reaction.
Yeah. And then McCrae comes out firing. He gets slashed up. And then the Maniac Cop literally disappears.
Okay. So, and we're going to talk about this toward the end of the movie. I won't spoil. But the next scene we have stingless vice cop and Alex Trebek at a diner. And they're like, I know I shot him. And she's like, I shot him twice in the head.
Yeah. And his hands were ice cold and he wasn't breathing.
Okay. At this point, what are our assumptions then?
He's a zombie ghost.
Magic of some sort. I mean, I felt that like we were 100%. We were 100% going down Friday the 13th. Like that is where absolutely. We were. Yes. We had a reanimated dead body through some sort of evil mom magic or whatever. Mm-hmm. And it had to be. He's teleporting around. He's choking people. It fits the bill to a T.
All right. That's where we are at this point in the movie because that's exactly the same place I was.
Right. If you can't tell from our tone, that's not how it turns out. So we'll talk about that when it gets
exactly. There. But that's where this movie has you going right at this point.
Yeah. So don't forget, he teleports. He's cold as ice. He doesn't breathe, and he got shot in the head a bunch of times. Moving on.
And he had some sweet gloves.
Right. Sexy gloves to keep his hands warm because they're so cold. So they're talking. McCrae is talking to girlfriend, and he's trying to figure out who she's been talking to. He's like, somebody knows about your relationship with Jack. Whoever it is the connection. And apparently it's this older lady. Well, they describe her as like this older lady at headquarters who uses a cane. And they make a comment like, oh yeah, her dad was a cop. And I'm like, oh, is her dad the zombie ghost?
Right.
All I want to say is she definitely uses the cane in this movie.
Oh my God. I love her.
Oh yeah.
Love.
It's not the twist I thought the movie was going to have, but really fun character.
It gets real funny. It starts to get very silly starting soon.
Starts to.
Well, it's been a little silly, but it gets real silly. So McCrae goes down to headquarters to find this lady, and it's like the middle of the fucking night, right? That's what it seems like.
This whole movie is either early in the morning or middle of the fucking night.
It doesn't care.
Right.
No.
It doesn't matter.
City never sleeps, babe.
That's true.
It's a
that
time.
Is very true. Yeah.
Cops work whenever.
24 hours a day, baby.
Billboards are always lit.
This movie is one of those great experiences where I get to realize how little I know about a profession. And like it hit me so many times through this movie because like in the opening crawl when he was doing that montage, he affixes a revolver to his belt. And I took pause and I was like, did cops use revolvers in 1988? That seems kind of old.
You have your service weapon, which is like a department issue. Basically, you get to pick from like any number, and then you can also have like an off-duty weapon, and you can kind of pick whatever you want within reason. Like, it's not going to be a Magnum or a Desert Eagle or something, but some people carry like,
I want a baton with a knife in it.
Well,
all right,
exactly.
Listen, there are some objective technical improvements that come from an automatic as opposed to a
and I'm
revolver.
not sure certain places have different rules about like what your weapon can be too. Like, it has to have certain features, and I don't think your service weapon can be a revolver, but that's a whole other thing.
This scene also tickled my box of, I don't know what policing is like, because apparently this woman is like, she is nebulously in charge of information, right? Did they ever actually say what her job was?
She was a computer.
Well, she's the 80s version of a computer. She's a mentat, doing reference. She's
like a records clerk.
Yeah, I think she's like the records person, like the head of the records department is what I got from all of that. But she's like a creep who shuffles around with a cane. Menacing.
He goes to her for some information, right? A pretense to have this conversation. And she's like, did you fill out the paperwork? And it's not like he's trying to get evidence checked out. And it's not like he's trying to like have her do work for him. He's literally just like, hi, can you 1980s Google something for me in our database?
Yeah. And she's like, the computers are down. I can do it tomorrow.
Remember when computers could go down?
Every day.
Yes.
Because, man, I remember that.
Welcome to working for corporations and our IT departments.
Yeah.
Okay. We work in
Brett, isn't every customer who calls you someone who's dealing with computers going down?
No, they just want to hear my lovely demeanor.
Fair.
Your sultry voice.
My soothing, dulcet
They just
tones.
come by to fill out a form and they don't have a pen.
So he's chatting her up and, like, honestly, pretty good schmoozing, right?
Well, yeah. What I got from this was he was saying, like, I know that you have a secret and I'm watching you, because she gets pretty frazzled after that.
I was going to say, if he was trying to subtly get information out of her and not do that, terrible cop.
Oh, yeah. No, he pretty much was like, you know what? I don't need the thing that I came here for. So I'll be seeing you.
Yeah, he's pretty much trying to scare her into running back to wherever she's got her secret, and he succeeds completely.
Oh, yeah.
Perfectly, because that's exactly what she does.
And they wind up at an abandoned shipyard.
Pier 14.
Oh, yes, Pier 14.
Down by the docks, I guess.
Down by the bay, where the watermelon grows. I have a young child. This song haunts my
Parents,
dreams.
am I right, people? Oy.
Oh, that's pretty
Boy,
funny.
if I do, my brother will say.
The worst part of that song is trying to figure out new rhymes.
Oh,
have you ever seen a bear eating its hair? Is my go-to.
You're talking to the guy who literally writes songs off the top of his head, so that's not the challenge for me. The challenge for me is she wants you when she wants to go to sleep, so she's annoyed and she's making me sing that with frustration, and she's refusing to sleep.
Yeah. So.
It's rough.
Man.
It's rough life.
It's like
just like this Cop. Man down at the docks who is being petitioned by Arcane Lady to, like, chill the F out.
Yeah.
She's literally
please stop
killing people.
Only kill the mayor and the commissioner.
Yeah. Stop killing these innocent people. Just kill the ones
I thought you were
to.
only going to kill the drug dealers and the people who deserved it.
80s. Oh, I love that.
You were such a good boy, but now you're killing just anybody.
And as she's talking to him, God. So we see him from behind, and she's like rubbing her face on his hand, like, I told you I'd stay with you, but calm down.
Yeah, she's like, Matt, I love you, Matt.
I know you were a good boy.
Matt, just, if this was the 90s, I'd say take a chill pill.
She takes his glove off, and we see his hand is scarred, and she rubs her face on his scarred hand.
That's love, man.
And then...
So hot.
our intrepid detective like knocks over a scaffolding. Like it's the loudest thing he could do.
He was so overtaken by how sensual this encounter was.
And she just pops a gun and starts blasting.
Yeah. She's like screaming and shooting into the night wildly.
Who's there? Pew, 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 pew. Sorry. And then like he leaves and you hear a cat meow and she goes, oh, I just jumped a little.
The only people in New York who were not armed were the freaking gang members.
Right.
Who should have been armed.
Yes. They were not. They were armed with their fists and a song.
Armed with jazz fingers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. They had the weapons in their heart, but like
exactly not in their pockets.
Not where they should have.
So yeah, this is where we learned that Matt was the killer's name.
Right. And so she turns around and Matt, Maniac Cop, is gone. And McCrae runs into a security guard on his way out who just happens to drop like, oh, this place is falling apart. It's about to be demolished in a couple of weeks. So I figured that would be really important. It's not.
No.
It's just setting up that it's abandoned.
The security guard is also like super sassy for a guy who has a gun drawn on him. So he's like, what are you doing? Pissing? Yeah. Stop fucking around in my abandoned docks that I'm forced to guard for some reason. I hate having to be a guard while everybody hates cops like you, asshole. Like all the while a gun's like in his face. Like, come on.
I respect this guard because he's going to make a cameo at the very end of the movie and try to stop a van by holding his hand out. I love him.
I think that was a different guard.
Oh, that was a different guard? Oh, I thought it was...
They had totally different hair.
Not all guards are the same person, Ian.
Yeah, Ian.
Did you just imply that all guards look alike?
Yes.
Oh, but the next scene introduces my favorite character in the movie. When Alec goes back to the office and he's like, kind of just going over stuff with this, I guess, desk cop, who's helping him go through files or whatever. This desk cop is just like, he's info dumping, but he's doing it with sass, right?
Oh, yeah.
He's got all the hot gossip, talking turkey.
He's pretty much talking about this guy, Matt
Cordell.
Cordell,
yep.
Mm-hmm.
He was a super cop, pretty much, but he didn't play by the rules.
He violated people's human rights.
Which is an aggressive statement.
Which is what
he's
they actually
literally labeled as super cop in the newspaper clippings.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It says like super cop stops robbery. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Literally super cop.
He pretty much arrested everyone is what it sounded like.
And then sounds like maybe shot people or abused people.
Yeah. He's the reason they played that video clip in the bar earlier where people complained about cops. And we find out that he got rolled over by the politicians and the mayor, and they ended up sending him to Sing Sing with all the inmates. And it sounds from this conversation like he died in there.
Yeah, we'll find out what happens in just a moment.
Yeah, we'll find out what happens. But he then goes, Trebek is asking him questions, kind of like, was there any, did he have a girlfriend or a wife? They probably were pretty broken up. And he's like, oh, no, he brought his girlfriend around. Yeah. She heard about what happened to him and she threw herself out a window trying to kill herself. Terrible thing for a Catholic girl to do. And this fucking guy is sass.
Oh, man. And then McCrae kind of gives him the eye like, nah. And also,
okay, Ian, the desk cop.
Oh, I know what's happening here.
How did you feel the movie presented this character? Because they literally tell us that he committed extrajudicial killings.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the movie kind of is like, yeah, like a good cop should.
Right. Yes. Yeah, because everyone is defending him like, oh, he's a hero. He's a great man. And it's like, this is the problem, friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, he got chewed up by the system, but he was keeping the streets clean. And like, no.
Streets are still not clean, buddy.
Yeah, and everyone kind of was like, the system did him wrong. He shouldn't have gone to jail. They knew what had happened. It wasn't right. Yeah, it was the glorification of that cop lifestyle.
And that rubbed me the weird way.
It was weird because a lot of this I thought was sort of forward thinking, like a commentary on how that's not okay, and and like, the mental health piece of it, but then it kind of does like this strange sort of thing where it kind of makes him a sympathetic character.
I think they were a little confused because I kind of think they were trying to not make him sympathetic fully, and that it was more a statement on like, this is the behavior and it's unacceptable by all these people who were trying to defend him. Then they made the people like the mayor and the commissioner who then had him arrested total assholes too. So you really don't like anybody except for Bruce.
Right.
I feel like they're hedging their bets, right? I feel like they don't want to fully take either stance. But we see different characters in the movie taking different approaches. But overall, like if I aggregate every scene and every character's opinion to the, just the general act of policing, the film seems fairly pro-police in its agenda. And like, oh man, this one bad guy, like, is
the bad apple.
An outlier, right?
Yeah.
But like they definitely, well, I don't know. It's hard for me to go entirely one way or another.
It's hard because you think about it, the whole movie's then predicated on they're trying to just pin all these things easily on this one guy, which does look like he might have done these things. But at the same time, it's very clear to us. It was weird as the audience because you knew he didn't do it, but you can see why the cops would be like, well, the evidence tells me this guy did it.
Oh, Bruce Campbell.
Everyone is corrupt, right?
Right.
Every person in this movie is a flawed character.
Yes.
Bruce Campbell's flaw is not police corruption, but he is a flawed character cheating on his wife, right?
Yep.
But like every like named cop and city official and like person short of our main character and his girlfriend are like actively corrupt and like covering up crimes and stuff. So like
I would say Alex Trebek is the most ethical character in the movie.
Corruption. Yeah. He's the hero in that regard, but he doesn't get to be the action hero.
No, I agree with all of that. And I think that it's that same thing between like a lot of people try to ride that line like, oh, I don't want to like say all police officers are bad, but I also don't want to like, say that there isn't a problem. And so like, for me, I have like friends and family members who are police officers and I respect those people, but I also know that it's like a corrupt, failed system and it's, shitty stuff happens and it's built in, which is why like I did my master's thesis on why the problems exist that do exist. And it's top down and it's a mess and it's always been a mess. And so I think this movie highlights that really nicely, but then also does a stupid thing where it kind of makes shitty cops into like heroes.
Yeah.
In a gross way. So
were I more well read on the subject of police relations in the 1980s, I bet we could probably tie some of this narrative to direct events.
Probably, yeah.
I think I agree with you in that it is trying to ride the line of maintaining a veneer of apoliticality while also exploiting a hot button issue for its narrative.
Well, because the 80s, 70s and 80s were like all about like corrupt cops and like busting the corruption while also like still kind of letting shit slide.
I thought it was a little interesting too, just from an 80s film standpoint. A lot of this nuance is a little bit more nuanced than I expected from a lot of the 80s horror.
And maybe they didn't even mean to do it and we're just reading too much into it because that's what's going on in our lives right now.
Because that's what we do.
Right.
So what I didn't read a lot into was the awkward flashback perp walk of our maniac cop through the jail.
Wait,
filled
hold
with
on.
Creeps.
Can we first just say that we get like a zoom in on Maniac Cop sleeping on a pallet in the shipyard,
one eye open,
with one one eye open, like staring into space, like having a reverie, and it turns out to be like his experience, like going to jail. He's a massive dude. A huge guy, and he gets attacked in the shower by other inmates.
Shawshanked.
Yeah, except not Shawshanked because they rape him in Shawshank.
That's true.
So this one, They stab him aggressively and murder him.
He's stabbed and attacked by 3 of the skinniest white guys that there's no way these guys took him. No way.
Well, he fights them off. I thought he killed a couple of them, but apparently he didn't, because then they all just start stabbing him aggressively.
Like knee to the guy's chin, which like erupts in blood. I was like, that guy is dead.
So he gets murdered and mutilated. And so we're like, oh, that's how he became a zombie ghost, right? We're about to find out what actually happened in a minute.
Right.
It's funny we just had that conversation we just had, because I literally wrote right here, do they want us on Team Murder Cop?
Yeah. Because it makes, and then later on when we find some other stuff out, it makes him, it's like, oh, that's really sad.
So immediately after this is my favorite scene where filing desktop drops into the mayor's office to basically just say, hi, mayor, I'm retiring in 2 weeks. You fucking got that cop killed. It's entirely your fault. You're a big bag of shit. Later, homie. And awesome scene. Loved it. This guy's been in the movie for less than 10 minutes. Standout character. I don't even think he comes back at any point.
No, I think that was the end of him. Yeah.
Wait, who was that?
He was the desk cop who like helped with the filing.
Why do I not remember that at all?
You were so blown away by how amazing it was, you blacked out.
Oh, that's so weird.
He's like a silver hair guy with a part. Yeah. He's got a blue shirt.
No, I remember him, but I don't remember this scene.
You know why you don't remember that scene is because the scene that follows is so iconic in this movie.
So we have McCrae and the girlfriend go to see Jack in jail on cop business.
Oh, yeah.
And then McCrae leaves the girlfriend in the interrogation room to make out with Bruce Campbell.
It should be noted that no new evidence has been discovered in this case, but McCrae has fully joined Team Good Guy to the point that he's like gonna leave his accomplice alone with him in a prison cell to make out.
Right.
It's just go like have your conjugal visit,
and I'm gonna go solve the crime. The end. But that's not what happens.
No, not at all. That would be a different film.
No, Crime Dog McGruff does not solve this crime.
McCrae goes to find the girlfriend with the cane. I don't know her name, so that's why I just keep referring her to the lady with the cane. He finds her office empty, starts going through her purse.
As you do as a man when you find a woman's purse.
He finds a single creepy Maniac Cop clown glove.
Yep.
And then he gets smashed in the head by her cane, and she starts screaming.
Oh my God, she's amazing.
So psychotically is the only word I can think to use. He now he knows there's no stopping him. He knows I'm no good to him anymore. And she's like beating on him. Oh my God, it was aggressive.
So
there's blood flying.
They don't do hysterical women like they used to. Because I love anytime, and this is, please don't clip this and take this the wrong way. I love anytime in the 80s that there's like a hysterical woman going batshit crazy. Because nowadays you'll watch like a horror movie and you'll get like, you know, a supermodel screaming for like 30 seconds. This lady is going at it like it's the end of the world. She's bashing him in with the stick. She's screaming bloody murder. She's like, no, this has got to happen. You got to die or else we're all dead. And like, just 10 out of 10. Love the scene so much.
Yeah, this is where I was like, oh, I kind of love her.
Yeah.
I don't care if she's a bad guy. I kind of love her.
It's the commitment. You commit like that fully.
As she's like screaming and yelling, apparently the interrogation room is like in the general vicinity of the records room.
Yeah.
I guess. I don't know. In the jail, like it's all connected because they can hear her. And so the girlfriend starts like buzzing to have the cop come let her out. And then the records lady runs out, the cane lady, and she finds a dead cop hanging, and she's like, you know, screaming and whatever. And then all of a sudden the Maniac Cop smashes through a window and pulls her through.
Grab. Yeah.
And he's just like, the way he's throttling her and slamming her into the wall face first.
Oh my God.
Was
I
like
couldn't stop laughing.
Half disturbing and
Great.
half hilarious.
I called it a wall banging.
Oh my God. It was
The
so
cop just
ridiculous.
starts firing shots randomly at his back.
Oh God.
To no avail.
And so then at this point, the Bruce Campbell and his girlfriend come out of the interrogation room because the door is just open, and they just start finding dead cops everywhere. And it looks like Raccoon City Police Department. There's just like dead cops everywhere.
Can we talk about how did he get this done?
It was wild.
Because they've been in the interrogation room for maybe like 5-10 minutes, and then the cane scene. So maybe in 10 minutes, he has murdered everyone in the and hung them up over like rafters.
Yeah.
And it's impressive.
So, like, obviously, again, we're still on the Friday 13 kick. It's murder mysticism.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right? And it has to be. There's no other reasonable explanation for it.
Right.
You can't be immune to bullets, magically appearing in and out of police stations, silently killing an entire police force. Like,
not breathing, cold as ice.
You're magic. You're magic.
Wearing
dude.
fabulous gloves. And wall banging your girlfriend.
Right. Oh my God. So then
that's going in.
So then Bruce Campbell says to his girlfriend, "Get out, go wait in the car. You know, if I'm not down in a few minutes, you know, get out of here."
I had issue with that because he's literally said she's a better shot than I am. She's a better cop than I am, pretty much. And he sent. I understand it's the '80s trope, like damsel, I'm going to take care of you, but that's fair.
Right. That's true. Maybe he
confusing,
knows that.
But fair.
So as she's outside in the car, McCrae gets thrown out the window and smashes into the top of the car next to her. And I was so upset because I thought he was going to be like the final girl. So
I know.
And he wasn't.
I was not expecting that.
He definitely deserved to be the hero of the movie.
He did. Because he was the hero up until now.
Although I'm always in with a good thrown out of a window onto smashing onto a car death.
Yeah. But yeah, so this is where the movie for me takes like a very hard left turn, and it turns into this really bizarre sort of like setup, not actually undead, conspiracy, wacky film. And
hey, Brett, I got you a movie with third act problems.
What? What, a horror movie where the climax just kind of lands on its face instead of sticking it? Who knew?
I agree with Sam so wholeheartedly that it was so confusing and almost felt like they had an idea of how they wanted it to end. They had no idea how to weave all these plot ideas. Too many thoughts, not enough continuity.
It felt like rewrites to me.
Oh, absolutely. That's what I was
This
thinking.
was supposed to be a Jason Voorhees, but somebody, 3 weeks before production ended, noticed that it was eerily similar and was like, "You gotta change that, dude. You can't."
Oh, you know what?
He can't be undead.
Yeah, he can't be a dead guy. Well, we'll get an explanation for that.
But we've
shortly.
shot stuff saying he's a dead guy already.
Oh, and make this like young man with a good chin the star. Do it now.
Hell yeah.
And you know what I really like in my movies? When everyone blames one guy, but he didn't do it.
Dude, there's a great part when Bruce Campbell is escaping the police station and he like gets the drop on two cops and he's got the gun out and he's like, don't try it. Don't try it. Don't try it. I'm going out here. I'm blah, blah, blah. And I didn't do it. And then he leaves and one cop goes to the other. You going after him? And he just says, you heard him. He didn't do it.
I love that line. That was so good.
Yeah,
it was definitely dub over as well, like in post, but so fun.
It was one of those like, hey, can you punch up the script a little?
Yeah, so now it's turned into The Fugitive.
Oh yeah, we need a car chase too. Can you guys fit one in?
Well, where do you go when you're wanted by the police?
You go to the largest, I think, jail in New York City.
I was going to say to where you can find the most police possible.
Right. So we go to Sing Sing to the medical examiner because McCrae had an appointment with him. So they decide to keep the appointment because they want to talk to him about Maniac Cop because they're like, he's supposed to be dead. So what's up?
Reasonable.
No one asked for identification. They let him walk right in.
Right. So the medical examiner says, well, they say like, how come you just put him in the general population? You know, what were you thinking? That you knew that they were going to kill him because he's a police officer. And he's like, well, he refused to be in isolation. He probably just didn't want to admit that he was afraid, which, you know, whatever.
Bad call.
Yeah.
Yeah. Take that isolation.
Yeah. So then he says, they're like, oh, so like, you know, what about his body? Like, whatever. He's like, meow, we don't fix his face. We just stitch him back up and throw him in a wooden box. And then
stitch him and hitch him. Yep.
And then his girlfriend claimed his body. And so, you know, now we know what happened. So I'm thinking like, oh, she's like a necromancer, right?
Oh, I would have been so okay with that.
But in another scene of like amazingly bad police work, Bruce Campbell basically just goes like, really? to that explanation, he's like,
yeah,
really? Is that really what happened? And the examiner is like, how dare you? I'm gonna spill all the beans.
Yeah,
you got me.
I can't resist.
You asked if I was a cop.
Exactly.
Okay, so he spills all the beans.
They're like, he's not dead. He's alive. He's killing people. And the medical examiner's like, wow, and has a flashback. And it shows that as he's about to do the autopsy, he finds a pulse. And this is where we learn that the Maniac Cop is not a zombie revenant person. What happens is the medical examiner was like, he was so badly brain damaged from the attack. There was no way he could have survived being put back into the prison population. He was not going to be a functional person. So I just signed the death certificate and released him to the cane lady, his girlfriend.
Checks out.
And I'm like, well, first of all, if someone is that like brain damaged and unwell, they wouldn't go back into the prison population, but whatever.
No, you send them over to silent madness.
Yeah. Oh, God.
But no, I just taped him up and let him go.
Yeah, it's fine.
Fuck it. He's brain dead. Who cares, right?
Yeah.
Right?
He's totally harmless, this gigantic beefcake of a man.
Guys, I just think I solved how to fix the overpopulation in prisons. We just let them go.
Just sign a death certificate and give their girlfriends.
Just, if they have a girlfriend, just send them out under her care.
Yeah.
She'll keep him safe.
So we've now solved war and overcrowding in prisons. Man, we are just on point.
So the medical examiner is like self-righteously angry, like, you're trying to ruin my career. He was a good cop, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, dude.
Also, now I need to see some ID.
Right. And then they're like, well, actually, I'm wanted by the police.
So he then picks up his newspaper and Bruce is like on the cover. They're being like, this is the guy killing all the cops. My question at this point, and please correct me if I'm wrong, after the murder massacre at the police station, didn't they have closed circuit cameras in the late 80s?
I actually had that same thought.
That could have verified that Bruce did not murder the entire police station? Just putting that out there.
I'm going to say apparently not.
Who would look at it? All the cops were murdered.
Oh, you know
that's
what?
True. That makes sense.
No, they saw the show. The computers were down.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
It's all one system.
Yeah.
We gotta wait for it to reboot. This is
Checks
the
out.
80s. It takes like 6 days to turn a computer on.
Yeah. All right. I can actually get behind the computers were down. That's fine.
They did set it up. So I don't know if that was on purpose, but...
Then we have to face the second biggest crisis that New York is plagued with at all times.
Oh, yeah.
Parades.
Yeah, St. Patrick's Day parade to be specific. And if anyone's been to the New York City St. Patrick's Day parade...
Not in the 80s.
I thought this was going to be a much bigger part of the story because it's a clusterfuck.
It seemed like a
day.
great plot device for murder.
Right. It's just sort of like in the background. They're just like putting on ties. Like, let me put on my green tie and have a montage of cops marching.
I want to show you this street reporter with a sweet microphone.
So at some point, the mayor expresses that he's like afraid to go to the parade because there's a serial killer about. And his aide drops the line of like, it's during the daytime. You'll be fine. That guy only kills at night. Which like has been true up to this point. And it is weird that they bother to hang a lantern on it there. Because like, yeah, he only kills at night. Why is he going to show up in the mayor's office during the work week or the day.
Yeah.
Because he does.
We're just not gonna prepare for that at all.
Going to acknowledge that this is a writing hole and we're going to just let it happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're just going to power through.
Yeah, so the girlfriend goes up to the commissioner's office and Jack is waiting outside, like hiding in a doorway.
By hiding, you mean standing in plain view
he's standing
outside
in
across the
half,
police station.
In a half shadow. Yeah.
And
watching.
I do want to also note that in the shot, there are at least 45 cops mulling around the police station across the street.
He's like, I'm just gonna stay right here and they won't see me. It's like in Grandma's Boy where the robot guy is like up against the wall.
How can they see me?
How can they see me? So she goes up and she's telling the commissioner, it's Matt Cordell, and he's, gonna murder you guys. Don't go outside. He's probably waiting for you. Blah, blah, blah. They don't believe her, obviously. And they're like, dude, there's a lot of circumstantial evidence against Jack and it doesn't look good. And you just need to
no. And then he plays the answering machine message that Trebek had left the night before being like, he has a female accomplice on the inside. And then the commissioner looks at her like, oh, is that you?
Yeah. It's like, she's a cop. Yeah. So then we get like a creepy dude who
raped Urson.
Yep. I wrote that too. He starts being rapey,
cool.
Of course. No, not cool.
They literally drop the line of something of well, commissioner's office is free now. It's like,
and what? So's my dick, pretty much.
So yucky.
So this bummed me out. Commissioner and gravelly voiced cop walk out into a hallway and are obscured by this door where we only see their heads, and we then see murder cop sort of walk behind them, obscured, and murder them.
We see an arm with his sword up behind them, like Michael Myers style, and then just stabbing them, and they're just like, and that's through the window, and then that's it.
And these are characters that have been with us for a bit of the movie. I really wanted more payoff than that.
Oh yeah, definitely. I thought it was funny. It made me laugh because you just saw the arm with the sword, and then they just were like, and fall to the ground. But I
don't think that's what they were going for.
The context of the story established that the commissioner and the mayor were this man's primary targets, and that was one of them. So just offing him in the background was a little anticlimactic.
Yeah, I was going to say, you would think that he would have something bigger planned for him, but it seems like his main objective now is Jack and his girlfriend, because now apparently his main objective is to make sure that Jack takes the fall.
Which makes no sense.
Yeah, so he's got to kill...
I'm going to kill them.
Well, he's got to kill the girlfriend because she's the only living link. Yep. And then, but now all of a sudden he wants to kill Jack.
But he's brain dead, so why does he think that?
Right. So this is where none of it makes any sense. Before it was at least you could kind of put it together. This is where it just goes off the rails.
So I guess we'll just take a moment to address he is a living person who has been shot at least 30 or 40 times at this point, including in the face.
Yeah.
And is fine.
He's fine.
He's totally good.
All right.
And he teleports.
And he doesn't breathe.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And he's cold as ice.
Right. And the tagline of the movie describes him as undead. So let's move on.
Rewrites.
Because the movie does.
Yeah. So in the commissioner's office, the cop handcuffs the girlfriend to his arm and they start to walk out to the elevators.
Is that a cop thing?
I don't think so. But it sets up that he gets stabbed and then she has to drag this dead body around.
I loved it.
I loved it too. I thought it was so funny. And I was also very impressed by her because that is not an easy thing to do.
Dude, vice cops are tough, man.
I guess. So she gets the handcuff key and gets it off as the maniac cop is busting through the door.
Hold on. Ian and I are both laughing at the jokes we're not going to say.
Yeah. I'll just laugh and say, I wrote at this point in my notes, have we forgotten they had an affair and she's not supposed to be that likable?
Right. No.
This movie is completely forgot. Because her and Bruce at this point are so likable as characters.
Well, that's why I said it took that turn where they become they're the heroes and they're so lovable. and they're doing the right thing.
I guess just for some reason in my head at this moment in the movie, I thought about his poor dead wife who he had an affair with and was like,
Right?
oh.
She kind of started this whole thing, really.
That's a great take.
It's all her
If
fault.
only she was cool.
Yeah.
I'm just waiting for Bruce to be like, oh, it's all her fault.
If only she wouldn't have quit couples counseling.
I was willing to pay for it and go.
It's a lesson. Lesson of the day, ladies.
Stay at home when your man's working.
Right.
Tolerate your police husband's emotional and statistically likely physical abuse.
Unfortunately, yes.
The 80s.
And, well...
The nows.
I mean, reality.
Yeah.
Like history, but...
Please don't come murder me, cops.
Yeah. Don't treat your mental illness ever. And totally follow your husband in the middle of the night to whatever shady business he's doing.
Oh, and nightgown and high heels. Yeah.
Whatever.
So some things happen.
Lots of fighting.
Yeah, heroine ends up on a balcony.
Yep.
After running from Murder Cop, who kills the guy handcuffed to her. While she's on the balcony, Bruce Campbell sees her and steps out from his little corner to be pounced on by 5 fucking cops and chucked into a paddy wagon.
Yep. He stepped 1 foot too far to the right.
Because they're like a T-Rex.
Yeah, he triggered their line of sights.
Yeah. If you don't move, they can't see you.
It's true, but I enjoyed this scene because they focused on, to get on the balcony, she chucked a computer chair through a window, and they showed the whole thing falling. I enjoyed it, but that didn't grab the cop's attention.
No.
The chaos that grabbed his attention was a guy stepping to his right.
Yeah, they all had big Metal Gear exclamation points above their head because he entered their cones.
If only he had a cardboard box.
So what happens is that Maniac Cop jumps into the driver's seat of the paddy wagon where Jack is in the back, and he rockets off, and then the girlfriend commandeers a cruiser with like a beat cop.
Yeah, we got a red shirt driving.
And they take off to chase him, and this chase scene reminded me of the helicopter chase from Nightmare at Noon. and it was like the original Fast and the Furious, not to quote that terrible movie again.
Terribly great movie.
But it took forever.
You mean not Fast and not Furious? Is this car chase?
Exactly. The slow and the fucking boring.
I expected him to run into the parade.
Yeah,
that was my thought.
The parade never comes back.
Oh, that would have been more fun.
Yeah, I thought there was going to be a parade situation. The Maniac Cop like running around the parade because they're all wearing their cop suits.
Oh, it could have been so good.
Yeah,
I loved how like into it the cruiser cop was because she jumps in and like it's clear he doesn't really recognize her, but she's like, "That's the guy driving that car after him." And she just grabs the shotgun, which is apparently situated between the passenger and driver seats, starts loading it. And the guy's kind of like, "Well, you know how to use a shotgun, lady?" And she's like, "Get close enough." But like, at some point, you imagine the cop would be like, now, ma'am, that's my gun. Please don't take it.
Please put that down.
It was his first day, so he's still learning.
Was that Leon? Damn.
Yeah.
Rough first day.
Jill came in really aggressive.
Oh, is this where the Resident Evil guys got their story from?
Probably. It feels basically the same.
I was really surprised when Nemesis shows up in this last act.
I mean, kind of. Yeah.
I love every shot of Bruce just rolling around in the back of this van.
God.
He gets so severely injured in reality.
He would be dead.
His hands are handcuffed behind his back. He's loose in a metal paddy wagon that is just whipping around the streets.
And he's just like throwing himself across the
One of my favorite things about Bruce Campbell is his willingness with physical comedy to just throw himself recklessly.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. So obviously the paddy wagon is heading to the pier, and obviously the girlfriend knows that, and they get to the home pier, as I called it. And I still, at this point, I'm still confused as to why he's fixated on Jack and why he's trying to kill him.
Completely reasonable confusion.
Yeah.
That through line was never established as far as I can tell.
No, he was just the fall guy.
He just did it.
Right. So he's not falling, so maybe that's why he wants to kill him.
The reason behind it is the movie needed to end.
Yeah.
And they just were like, let's just try this.
Yeah. So, the girlfriend shows up and they call for backup, and Maniac Cop, he grabs an axe and starts trying to get into the back of the paddy wagon. And, here's where the girlfriend shoots up into the air and then drops the shotgun. So the Maniac Cop obviously picks it up.
We also finally see his face.
Yes.
Oh, what a reveal.
His face is like all chopped up looking, growling like a monster.
Green teeth?
Yeah. Because I guess the non-undead don't take care of their teeth. I don't know.
I mean, honestly, other than that one scar, he kind of just looked like any high schooler with bad acne.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, he could have... This is the kind of stuff that some of that, Clearasil could have dealt with. He could have had a normal life. Just don't let it go, kids.
Yeah. It was rough looking.
It gets better. Unless you get knifed in prison.
So then the Maniac Cop is like brandishing the weapon, and Bruce Campbell comes running and does like a flying jump kick and kicks the gun out of his hand, which made me laugh.
Karate.
So then the backup starts to arrive, and Maniac Cop is like, I can't be seen here because I don't exist. And so he jumps into the paddy wagon to try to drive it away. And this is where like Jack jumps onto the paddy wagon, and there's like a fight while he's driving. And it was actually really funny because the Maniac Cop is just not moving while Jack is like pummeling him, and he's just like bitch slapping Jack like meh, like he's a little fly, like meh. Get out.
This is where the flaw in Brain Dead Maniac Cop's thinking comes into play, because his escape attempt is straight into the bay.
Oh yeah.
Well, that is where he would be going, but because he is so distracted by our strapping young chin lithely slapping him in the face for no damage, he doesn't realize that he's driving towards what, like, I guess is like the horizontally suspended mast of like a sailboat or something.
AKA hanging in javelin.
You big old speary thing.
Dude, Pier 14's in disrepair, man.
Yeah. So it impales him, kind of?
It definitely contacts him, I'm going to go with.
He screams like it hurts, and I thought I saw a little blood.
And then we get the most dangerous stunt I've seen done in a while.
Yeah, because that was a real dude.
A real dude. So it jumps off a pier, and the guy jumps off the van and is going to the water. And I was really nervous. Yeah,
so the Bruce Campbell, it was obviously a stuntman. As the car drives off the pier, this stuntman like jumps away from the truck and
doesn't get that far.
No, but I mean, he's obviously alive, so he'll be back for the sequel. And then the truck sinks.
Okay, so the biggest confusion I have is, so all the backup and cops arrive and everyone's cool with Bruce Campbell.
Yeah, I wrote that too. Like, I guess they all believe him now because he's just kind of standing there. No one's giving him a hard time. His girlfriend's got a gun. Like,
anyone could have stolen that paddy wagon.
Right.
So nothing has changed in my mind, if I'm a cop, that this guy didn't murder all these cops still.
Right.
So we get a like Jaws kind of like scene where they're pulling the car up out of the water with a crane. That's all I could think of.
Yeah. And obviously Maniac Cop is not in the car because he's Jason Voorhees' uncle.
No, because he's in the water below. Because the last shot we get of the movie
is his creepy hand rising from the water to gently caress the pier.
And then bam, credits.
Freeze frame.
Nope, not the last shot.
Yeah, because it freeze frames on his beautiful hand.
Yeah,
we must have been watching a different version then. Because there's another scene back in the mayor's office.
No.
Oh, we didn't see that
I didn't
version.
see that one.
Our version, it hit bam, cut.
Maybe that's why credits. That earlier scene I don't remember because it didn't happen in my version.
We must have been watching different versions because I watched it on YouTube.
Unedited? Oh, yep. The Shudder version doesn't have that.
So the last scene of the movie is the mayor and his aide. The mayor's pouring himself a drink, patting himself on the back, job well done with that bullshit. And the aide's like, yeah. And leaves the room. The mayor's kind of just sitting in his chair, undoing his St. Patty's Day dye. And we have a slow pan down towards the corner of the room, and it looks to be like a closet covered with like a sliding drape. and we see two big black shoes under it.
What the fuck?
How come that the guy just walks out of that. The camera never pans to the mayor, but we just hear the violence of the dude getting killed, and then credits.
How is that not in the cut? How do they cut that?
That is so bizarre.
So,
I don't know.
Ours literally ended with his hand coming out of the water and hard credits. So that's when I went downstairs and said to Sam, we're watching the second one next week because I need to see where this goes.
I'll send you the link.
Confused.
Jump to 127 on the video I sent you.
Real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, Brett, this looks like porn.
I mean, that is the other tabs I have open. Maniac Cop gets the juices flowing.
Just hearing it's glorious. Not seeing it, just hearing it's amazing.
And then you get a nice pan over the city, and that's the end. That's so weird. I wonder if there's anything else little that got cut out.
I know. I'm now wondering the same thing.
That's
you're welcome to watch the entire film again from the link I sent you. No one's going to do it.
I think I'm good.
You might. You're welcome to.
Okay, so Sam just watched. I listened to her watching the two scenes that Brett mentioned. Sam, what are your thoughts?
Well, so my initial thought was, I wrote, wow, that was not an ending, because it wasn't an ending, because we just got the ending. So earlier Brett had mentioned a scene that I said, like, I don't remember seeing that, because I didn't see it, because both of these scenes were mayor scenes. And I was wondering why they only had the mayor in the movie for like 20 seconds. It's because they cut out his scenes in the Shudder version, which is stupid. So maybe you just watch it on YouTube.
Clearly the watching on your phone at the gym experience is superior. So
was this like a treadmill kind of watch, or a bike, or elliptical? What was this?
Yeah, no, I was milling. I was getting in my my daily what's an impressive sounding distance, 26 miles.
Yeah, there you go.
That is morning marathon, as I like to call it. What can I say?
Yeah, so with all of the information we just got from those two short scenes, it makes a lot more sense why Maniac Cop is mad at everybody, and it sets the mayor up as being a piece of shit.
Can you explain why Maniac Cop is mad?
So the earlier scene was the sassy guy from the records room. He comes in because the mayor's like, McCrae was down there. What was she asking? He's like, he was asking about Matt Cordell, the guy you threw to the wolves. And because, he was trying to take down those mafia guys with all the connections, and you wanted him out of the way. And the mayor's like, what are you trying to imply? And that's when he's like, I don't give a shit. Like, I'm done in 2 weeks or whatever. So I was like, that would have been good information to know about why Maniac Cop is so angry. And then the final scene, like Brett described with the mayor, gets murdered off screen, which is fine. It was fine because I thought it was appropriate to
end a movie with an off-screen murder.
Way, right?
Fine.
Yeah. And it kind of wrapped up a little bit for me, as opposed to like the white hand, like caressing the pier.
The way that it ended
So
for us
weird.
was so sudden.
Well, because I thought to myself, like, there has to be more movie.
Yeah.
Like, that can't be the end. That's like the middle. So where's the rest? Even though I don't want there to be like another whole half of a movie. Like,
question for you: does seeing that middle movie mayor scene make you feel even more sympathetic?
Yes.
And does that make it more problematic?
Probably.
Yeah.
So apparently there was a DVD release in the late 90s that had deleted scenes in it. So I'm guessing that's the version I saw.
What we saw was probably the theatrical release, so everyone was probably like, what the fuck?
Could be.
Mm-hmm. I don't know why they would leave out the final mayor scene, even if they did take the other one out.
Especially when they were at an 85-minute runtime, and it's not like 2 more scenes would have been an issue.
Well, and also the whole setup was he hates the commissioner and the mayor, so what is he going to do? And I also just said the mayor, like Charlie Day in that episode where he's being Serpico for the mayor. They set up the mayor to be like, one of his targets, so why wouldn't you have that payoff?
So it's fascinating because the way the movie ended for us, the first one we saw, I thought the mayor was going to be like the plot point for the second film.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
So maybe they cut it And when we see the second film, interesting. So, okay, we've gotten to the end of Maniac Cop.
Wow.
Sam, Brett, what are your thoughts?
Are you asking me if I like it?
Yeah, do you like this?
I'm just trying to get you to work your brand into your dialogue, Ian.
No, that's smart.
No.
That's smart.
It's not bad. I enjoyed a lot of weird things about it that had nothing to do with the actual movie plot.
Mm-hmm.
Like I liked the 80s style shot composition and set direction, and I really enjoyed that scene where they're leaving the police precinct and all the dudes are just dead in random places. Like that was fun. Like one of the guys is just standing behind a cage door and his eyes are open, and she like walks up to talk to him and he slowly falls over backwards. Like I like those. Those are weird, campy scenes that are very enjoyable. I think that it is a weaker Friday the 13th and that they abandoned that premise in the third act, which sucks. I would have rather had like a necromancer or a curse or anything. Do I like it? Sure. I actually enjoyed it. Would I watch it again? I'm going to need like 30 years before I'll consider doing that. So catch me on the 66th anniversary of it. But I mean, it's not a failure. I think as far as campy movies go, I would say, we're talking like B rank.
Oh yeah,
B tier.
definitely. I would pretty much agree with everything that you said. Like the kills were fun and funny and campy. And like for me, it really is like that they abandoned that whole setup and the serious third act problems that arose were kind of what killed it for me. But it wasn't the worst thing we've ever watched, and it had a lot of potential. And like you, I don't want to watch it again anytime soon, probably ever. But it's it's fine. It's fine.
I'm going to be the outlier here. Not a surprise. I loved this movie.
Yeah.
This movie was everything I want in my 80s like urban horror movies. And I think
urban. What does that mean?
Well, like it wasn't. Think of Friday the 13th as like out in a camp setting. This was a city-based movie.
Gotcha.
I'm using the word urban as a city.
Okay.
It's everything I want in my metropolitan murder movie.
There you go.
In my inner city kill dramas.
It got to it. It had some great kills. It had young Bruce Campbell, which was a total fun thing to see, having seen him grow up. I didn't care that the story went off the rails because it just moved. It really moves. It was fast. It didn't feel bogged down at any point, probably because they cut some major scenes out, which would have slowed down. But I could watch this again. Absolutely. I really enjoyed this one.
Yeah, I did feel like it slowed down a bit after McCrae died, and it got like when it started to get weird. And so that's where it kind of like started to lose me. But it was whatever.
I think it got hilariously weird though, like because the scene when he's trying to revive this bloody corpse that's clearly bled out and no one's checked for a pulse. Like I enjoyed all of that. It was fun.
The third act transition from a slasher movie to an action piece didn't really go over as well for me.
Yeah, that was
everything prior to that I was on board with.
Right. Yeah. Until he turned into a living, breathing person with severe brain damage. Then up until then I was cool.
It really does. I can see how like it has its George Kennedy dying in Nightmare at Noon transition where you're like everything was great until now. What has happened? This is a totally different movie. But for me, I had a blast with it.
Yeah.
So all right, there we have it. Maniac Cop. Can't wait to do Maniac Cop 2 and 3.
Oh God, can we just do 2 and then like figure out if we're
I will. I'm not going to spoil anything for you. 2 is supposedly the most beloved of the trilogy. People really like 2.
Is Bruce Campbell in it?
I don't know.
Yes, he's not in it. I don't want to watch.
I would imagine. Okay. I couldn't see how he couldn't be in it after this one.
So I read that he has said like Maniac Cop is an awful movie, and I don't know why I did it, but it was a paycheck. So
you got George Kennedy.
Right.
Well, thank you, Brett, for joining us on this film. Thank you, everyone, for listening. I want to shout out to our wonderful audience over in India. We just passed 2,000 downloads in India alone. So thank you guys so much for being so supportive of us.
Is it just India or is it like
in just India
Southeast
itself?
Asia?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Thank you guys for listening. Thank you everywhere for listening to. We hope you enjoy. You can follow us. All our socials are in the episode notes. Brett, what are you plugging this week?
I mean, I'm really feeling index funds. I think they're a good investment, but maybe wait until the market cools down a bit. We're going into a dip. You know how it is.
It's interesting because you literally told me to put all my money in Dogecoin off camera.
I said GameStop. It's not my fault you didn't pull the trigger.
You know what? You're right. Well, maybe I will next week.
No, do not invest in GameStop next week. That is the worst thing you could do.
It's too late. I've already taken the advice to heart.
Damn it. All right. Well, next week I pay off my brother's terrible investment debts.
Next week we try to climb out of this hole. We'll see you guys then.
Peace.
Bye.